Is S.T.A.L.K.E.R Call of Pripyat worth playing today?
I'm all ears, buddy.
Recently we looked at the other Stalker games to see if the series still holds up, as someone who hasn't played Stalker before. And what I discovered was kind of.
This place is pretty damn
The previous
good.
two games are a janky, difficult, yet enjoyable pile of shooting and spooking, where interesting systems do the heavy lifting and bugs frequently pop up. But maybe third time's a charm, and Call of Pripyat will be a more polished experience. I'm Remus Van Kozen, and let's close off the trilogy by talking about Call of Pripyat. Released in 2009, roughly a year after S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky, Call of Pripyat is a sequel that follows up one of the possible endings in Shadow of Chernobyl. Obviously not the one I got. You play as Major Alexander
Dokhtyrov, a USS special agent,
who has been sent by the military to investigate why a recent mission failed, resulting in 5 helicopter crashes. You begin in Zadin, a marshland littered with shipwrecks, mutants, and stalkers. You are introduced to the nearby factions, who are free stalkers and bandits, and get thrown into the fray. Along the way, you will learn a little about how the area has changed since the Brain Scorcher was turned off, how the factions have evolved with the changes to the zone, and even meet some new friends. From the very start, Call of Pripyat feels different to the other games for a number of different reasons. Immediately, the game does not look as great as S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky. The visuals are quite muddy and at times look like a step back towards Shadow of Chernobyl, even on the highest settings. The lighting is all over the shop. There were still moments when I'd stop and really enjoy the surroundings, but these were usually followed by the sight of an NPC getting obliterated by my torch brightness.
Aloha!
Despite the visuals being a bit lacking, Call of Pripyat introduces the biggest improvement to the franchise so far: the combat. If you have played the other Stalker games or have seen my previous videos, you'll be all too familiar with how frustrating combat can be. You would line up a shot, take it, and then cross your fingers that the bullet trajectory would play nice. Ideally, a hit would be seen on the enemy rather than a puff of smoke in the dirt behind them or on an opposite wall. Common advice was to not use scopes as they don't really help, but instead hip fire where possible. Call of Pripyat adds traces to your shots so you can see the bullet path. This makes a huge difference and makes combat far more enjoyable. I found myself actually liking more of my guns and wanting to upgrade them more thoroughly, instead of throwing them away as soon as possible to grab something that could be better by default. Human enemies didn't seem to be as tough as previous titles. I played through on Master, and though mutants like the Chimera and even controllers at times caused me quite a few deaths, stalkers dropped like sacks of bandages and sausage from 1 or 2 well-placed shots. Also, they only occasionally threw grenades in retaliation. The grenades still hurt and definitely got me a decent chunk of time, but it was nice to not be darting between cover every 5 seconds. My much loved upgrade system is back, and this time has a couple of differences from S.T.A.L.K.E.R Sky. Upgrade paths aren't really the same and feel more simplistic. Previously, certain Tier 3 upgrades would require specific Tier 1 and 2 modifications in order to be unlockable, whereas now you can just pick one of the Tier 2 and 3 slot upgrades without having to worry about any other prerequisites apart from tools, which we'll mention in a second. Upgrades are kept behind crafting tool walls though, which can only be performed by a technician once you have given them the right set of tools, and sometimes vodka.
Here's to a good day's work.
The tools can be found out in the world and are pretty easy to find if you are exploring anyway. In a way, it makes the act of upgrading more rewarding, and I definitely felt a desire to go out and get the tools as soon as possible, so I could get the most out of my equipment. Speaking of items being found out in the world, stashes are filled from the very start. Previously, you would need to find a note or have an NPC tell you about a stash before you could actually get items from them. You could stumble across a stash location prior to getting the info, but opening the stash just displayed an empty inventory screen. With stashes being populated from the get-go, I found myself wanting to explore areas more, and really inspect every nook and cranny in hopes of finding a stash. Items from these stashes are pretty great too, with decent weapons, ammo, stacks of supplies frequently appearing. With that said, outside of the stash rewards, the maps feel a bit empty at times. For example, I was expecting Pripyat to be this chaotic irradiated war zone with monolith popping off against the military, but it was mostly just abandoned. Faction wars aren't around anymore, which is a bit of a shame, but quest choices give the opportunity to shift presence in certain areas, as well as how you are regarded with the faction. I think this was a decent trade-off, as it feels like your choices matter more, and you can really influence a faction's presence in the zone. I'm not sure how I managed to swing this, but I seem to be on amicable terms with pretty much everyone, including the bandits. This allowed me to zoom around spectating the battles and swoop in to loot up the leftovers. Another great improvement Call of Pripyat adds over the previous games are achievements. These are mostly bound to completing quests, but some are given for specific decisions with factions, such as providing them with information. It might be a small thing, but I personally love achievements, especially when unlocking them comes with an in-game perk like free supplies delivered to your personal stash, or access to discounts at a particular faction vendor. It adds to the whole feeling of your past actions having flow-on effects, and it's personally a big motivator of continuing to complete side quests. So while combat overall feels pretty damn good, upgrades are more straightforward, exploration is sort of rewarding, and your quest decisions matter, there is still something that stops Call of Pripyat from being the perfect game, and that's the jank. There is a lot of jank going on. NPC behaviour seems to be pretty sketchy, with NPCs sometimes acting a bit erratic, either getting a bit nervous doing tappy dances, straight up ignoring combat, or flying away. I had a bug pop up a couple of times where all of the world's NPCs and items despawned, and I had to search for an earlier save before this happened. It was kind of unnerving, and like an emission had just voiped everything. Emissions are sort of terrifying.
Attention stalkers, an emission is approaching.
When you're caught out in the open by an emission, the urgency to rush to a safe house is definitely there. However, there is this weird amount of time that you have to wait indoors for the emission to be over, and the sound of crows falling out of the sky, followed by the abrupt end of the emission, made me laugh every time.
Stalkers, the emission is finally over.
The character voice work, at least the English dialogue, is some of the funniest I have heard in a long time as well.
Every zombie in Pripyat is going to know we're coming. We've got to move faster. Run!
So what happened?
Well, it's a long story. I'll tell you another time.
Okay.
We're all dead. Help! Someone help me! Get that thing away from me! No!
Recon unit, come in. What is going on out there?
The man himself.
I really hope it continues in Stalker 2.
Aloha!
The game loves to go into these cinematic camera angles of your character interacting with quest goals. These usually look pretty rough and don't add too much to the overall game. I also discovered that the world doesn't stop while these scenes are happening, and enemies can take advantage of your frozen character.
He was a good guy. It must have been what happened to the recon unit. The controller forced them to attack each other. Anyway, over and out.
Story-wise, I feel that Call of Pripyat might be the least engaging. It felt like there just wasn't that much at stake. This is potentially due to the fact that your choices matter and can alter the presence of factions in the zone, so the game had to deliver lots of little story bits occurring around your character rather than one grand arc that had little offshoot quests like the previous games. It was still fine, and the ending screen gives you a cool epilogue for each of the choices you made, but I honestly didn't realise the game was ending because it just didn't feel like anything important was happening. Call of Pripyat might not be a perfect game, but it's an absolutely great Stalker game that is definitely worth playing today. It has a slew of improvements over the previous titles, like rewarding exploration, quest choices, and trace of fire, while still maintaining an adequate amount of lovable jank and difficulty. Anything I missed? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Okay. Thanks for your help.